Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi Yahya.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Alhamdulillah, inshallah, we are about to start our journey of Arabic grammar. Arabic grammar is more commonly known, especially in Arabic, as the science of Nahw. The science of Nahw. Now, in regards to the science of Nahw, what will we actually learn? What's the purpose of this science? What's the end goal of this science? So I'm coming on to all of those discussions. However, before we go on to those discussions, we have to understand that this is our first stage of Arabic grammar. And Arabic grammar is a very complex science, well researched, and a deep science. So it's important with any science, which especially is deep, that the first book or the first stage that we study, it's important to study it in a way which will give us a good broad understanding it will give us a broad understanding without diluting the message. So we want to make sure we ensure the core principles are covered. But we don't want to go so deep that we lose our audience. Rather, we want to make sure we build on step one, that by the end of this book, we feel confident about Arabic grammar. And from my experience, I will say that if you understand this book and apply it over 1 or 2, 3, 4 years in different language books, like Qisasun Nabiyyin, Qur'an translation, Hadith translation, over time, just the knowledge stored in this book will give you 80–90% of the tools of Arabic grammar. Because this book covers the common stuff. Yes, for the depth, for the breadth, how to go broad into the science. For that and the other 10–15%, for that we'll have to go to stage 2 grammar. And then even deeper and research level, we can go to stage 3 grammar. When the time comes for that, we'll discuss them. But right now, let's focus on stage 1 grammar. But I don't want to belittle stage 1 grammar. Rather, I strongly believe, after experience of doing different books, I strongly believe 80% plus of your normal books, the grammar used in there will be covered within this grammar book. Is that clear, Yahya?
Ji, that's clear.
Any questions so far?
Nope, no questions.
Okay. Now, what is this book? Al-Madkhal ila ilm al-Naḥw, which translates as an introduction, a primer into the science of Naḥw. Naḥw, by the way, is just Arabic grammar. Now, in the book, it has a saying of a scholar of the past, Hammad ibn Salama, the person who studies Hadith without, so we want to study Quran and Hadith, definitely. But he says the person who studies Hadith without knowing Naḥw is like the donkey that carries the feed bag without any barley within it. So what's the point of carrying a feed bag or carrying bags with you? Rucksack, for example, with you, but you've not stored anything useful in it. Why are you carrying this load for no reason then? Rather, if you're studying Hadith, if you're engaging with Hadith, make sure you have the tools for it. And the tools include Naḥw, Sarf, and other sciences which you study throughout Alamiya course. Now, in this book, as you can see in the contents page, there's 43 lessons. So it gradually builds over 43 lessons. The first few will be very easy, and over time it'll get more complex. By the end of in the 43rd lesson, actually, is just about 20–30 sides of Arabic sentences explained through grammar. So it's the practical side really embedded in chapter 43, in the final chapter. So let's start our journey. In this book, first 2 sides explains about the introduction of Naḥw. Now, where did Naḥw come from? Now, we have to understand this before we get into chapter 1. Inshallah, in every session, we'll be doing 1 chapter. So 43 chapters, so we'll have 43 sessions. But just before we go into chapter 1, where did the science of Naḥw come from? When did this science develop? Was it always there? Remember, Arabic came before Rasulullah. So 1,400 years ago, Rasulullah and the Sahaba, they obviously used to speak very good Arabic. But Arabic was there before they came. Arabic is a language much before Islam. In fact, the Arabs that Rasulullah was sent amongst, they were the most eloquent in terms of Arabic language. They were known. The Quran itself indicates to the eloquency. So remember, Arabic came first, Quran came second. Meaning, in terms of revelation in this world, for humans amongst us, the Quran was later. So now, the Quran, Hadith, and all these Islamic sciences, that was all later. Arabic was always there. But like any language that we study, for example, in our case, English, whatever your mother tongue is, or whatever your tongue that the language that you used to, like for example, myself, if someone asks me rules of English language, I might not know them that well. In fact, there could be someone from a totally different country in the East. So any random country in the East, let's just say someone from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, or anywhere else, they might know the rules of English language better than me, because they might have studied the rules to a very good level. But their spoken language might still not be as good as me. Why? By the way, it might be as good, it might be better, but there's a possibility that even though they might know rules better than me, they might not be able to do spoken language as good as me. Why? Because they're just not living in the environment of the spoken language. So like that, Arabic language will learn the grammar rules. But to then do the spoken language, yes, there'll be different books in the Alimiya course, which will try to build your spoken language as well. But sometimes, eventually, 1 year down the line, 2 years down the line, you might just need to take a month or two, even if it's 1 or 2 weeks in Arabia, and try to engage with people, and that will really build your spoken language. Now, the point I was trying to make there was that, look, we might be able to speak English, but we don't know the rules well. And we don't even bother learning the rules, because we know our children will just learn the language from us, their children will learn the language from them, and so on. So in Arabia, 2,000 years ago, people were just learning language from one another, children learning from fathers, forefathers, etc., grandfathers, and done. No one ever studied rules. Because it's just Arabic was only learned amongst Arabs. No need to learn rules. But then when the Quran was revealed, Quran and Hadith, now Arabic was no normal language now. Now it's a language of a religion, worldwide religion. So now what happened was the Quran and Hadith started to spread amongst non-Arabs. But for the non-Arabs to understand Arabic, it wasn't as easy as just learning it from the fathers, because their fathers never knew Arabic. Rather, they had to study Arabic as a formal science. And when you sit down to study as a formal science, now you need to know the rules behind it, because you've not just learned it from birth or from childhood. So that's when the rules started to get formulated. And it mentions in the history that Ali radiallahu anh instructed one of his disciples, Abu-l-Aswad ad-Duwali. It's mentioned in the introduction here, that start writing, formulating rules of Nahw according to this style. And then Abu-l-Aswad ad-Duwali started to formulate these rules, because this language was being passed on to non-Arabs who had not understood or learned Arabic from their childhood. So now we needed a formal structure for it. And that, by the way, means majority of us fall in this category. Correct?
Yeah.
So have you understood the thought process of why Arabic language has come?
Yeah.
Is there any questions on that?
Nope, no questions.
Okay, now I would request all the audience, the students, the friends, I would request all of them to read the full introduction in their own time. It's just general knowledge. It'll hopefully make you understand the science of Nahw, or the foundation or the history of the science of Nahw, inshallah. Any questions, Yahya?
Nope, no questions.
Okay, now let's go into lesson 1. Inshallah, in every session, we'll be doing one lesson. So today's session is lesson 1, the introduction. Now, lesson 1, the introduction, actually, I enjoy doing this lesson, but I also get very scared doing this lesson to students. And the reason is, sometimes some students come to lesson 1 and they feel overwhelmed by it. Why? Because lesson 1 in many of the books is just terminology. Now, as you can see on the next page, there's 23 terminologies. Literally, it'll just be a word and what it means. A word and what it means. If you can see after that, it's lesson 2. So there's nothing technical in lesson 1. It's just terminology. Now, some students will say, yeah, that's okay. Just learning stuff and done. But other students will think, oh, so much learning. Believe me when I say this, from lesson 2, lesson 3 onwards, when it comes to the technical stuff, it'll only be 1 or 2 concepts that we'll need to learn every lesson. But what I like to do is in the books, at the beginning, just put all the terminologies in one place. If you learn it, good. If you don't learn it, that's also good. Because by the end of the book, lesson 1, the terminology mentioned in there will be second nature to you. You'll be able to say this terminology in your sleep. So don't worry about the terminology right now. Yeah, just read it once, understand it. If you can't remember it, just don't worry. Because by the end of this book, this terminology will be so easy for you. Why did we put it all at the beginning? So that eventually you have it all in one place rather than scattered throughout the book. So Yahya, you okay?
Ji. Yep.
You're not worried about the countless terminology that we'll be learning on this chapter?
No.
Before the terminology, there's 3 points here. The first point, what's the definition and purpose of Nahw? So in this lesson 1, most of it, I'll just be actually reading through the book because it's self-explanatory, to be honest. So the first point is, the reason why we study Nahw is to learn the grammatical state of every single word in Arabic. So every single word in Arabic has a grammatical state. I know you've not learned this, but just as an example, again, please don't feel overwhelmed by the earlier lessons, because all of this will be very simple over time. It's just that at the beginning, you will be mentioning certain concepts which you've not covered yet, because we're still building yet. So anyway, the Quran ayah, the Surah Fatiha, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So maybe you can even take a physical Quran out to check this. But I want everyone to focus on the last letter and the harakah, alamina. So I want everyone to focus on the last letter of each word. So right now, to be honest, you might not even know what the last each word is in Arabic, but over time you'll know what all that is. So I've made it easy by putting on the screen. So each word, the last letter, I want everyone to focus on the harakah. Now my question to you, Yahya, is why do you read alhamdu? Why do you not read alhamda? So why do you not read alhamda lillahi rabbil alameen? Or why do you not read alhamdi lillahi rabbil alameen? Why do you read alhamdu, by the way, Yahya?
I'm not sure.
Because you've always just learned it like that from your Quran teacher.
Ji.
That's the best answer we can give.
Yep.
Well, okay, that's okay, but there has to be a grammatical reason why it's alhamdu. Similarly, lillahi. Why is it lillahi? Why not lillahu, lillaha? So so each word, the last letter, the harka on that represents the grammatical state. Now, there's a grammatical state for this word alhamdu, which I can work out from that harka, the hamdu, the do part. We haven't studied enough, so we don't know the answer yet. But inshallah, by the end of this book, you'll be able to tell me that answer very easily. That's the purpose of Nahw. So the full Quran, the full Hadith, you'll be able to tell me every single word, what the reason behind the grammatical state and the harka on each last letter of each word. Another purpose of Nahw is the method of joining words to make a meaningful sentence. So once you've studied grammar, you'll be able to formulate sentences. You know, like in English, I know certain words. I know the word make. I know the word book. I know the word big. But how do I make a sentence out of these 3 words and more? So if I say to a student, please make or write rather than make. I should write. I should change that to write. So please write a big. Sorry for that. Please write a big book. So meaning it's not the most decorative sentence there, but you get the message, which is that I've got random words. How do I make a sentence? So I need a bit of grammar, a bit of understanding of the language, and that grammar aids in that. So that's what grammar does. That's what Nahw does. And the third and final one, to save yourself from mistakes, whether that's reading, writing, or speaking Arabic. To save yourself from mistakes, you need to know grammar. Because without grammar, we would have read Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, for example. So is the purpose clear?
Ji.
It doesn't really touch upon the definition, but the definition is basically the same thing. The definition of Nahw is the grammar, Arabic grammar. So we don't really need to write the definition. We just need to write the purpose. Now, terminologies. So before we go into each detailed lesson, overall terminologies. Now, I'll mainly just be listing them. Don't feel overwhelmed by it. If some of these terms just fly over your head, let them fly over your head. As I mentioned, by the end of the book, a lot of these terms will just become second nature to you. Throughout the book, you'll probably keep going back to these terms and checking, oh, what did this term mean? And it'll just make sense. Right now, I'm telling you from my experience of doing Arabic grammar, teaching it to many students over many years, this first lesson, parts of it will go over your head. Well, it's meant to, because you've not studied all this yet. Okay. So now let's go into the first terminologies. The first one is ism. Ism. Ism, basically, it's a noun. So in English, we have nouns. That's called an ism. And number two, verbs. Verbs in Arabic are called fa'al. Number three, particles. Particles are more joining words. For now, loosely, I'll call it joining words. You can maybe just write it as well, joining words. That's called harf. So Yahya, if you can repeat those three.
Ism, a noun. Fi'al, a verb. And harf, a particle.
Now, the next three words, they will definitely fly over your head. They dhamma, in fact, not the next three, the next six, and even actually moving on to the next page as well. They coupled, dhamma and madhmoom. Dhamma means, the dhamma is a specific grammatical state, or it's basically a haraka. Rather than a grammatical state, it's a haraka upon a letter. So alhamdu, do, that do, that's called a dhamma. In a subcontinent, you call it pesh. But for those that are not from this, not acquainted with the subcontinent terminology, you don't need to worry. We'll call it dhamma. Then alhamda, that's called fatha. That's here, number 6. And alhamdi, so alhamdi, that's called kasra. That's called kasra. Now, by the way, a word which has a dhamma on it, that word is called madhmoom. That's that number 5, madhmoom. A word that has a fatha on it at the end of it, that's a maftuh word. So grammatically, that's a, just one second, to do the pen. That's called a maftuh word. And alhamdi, a word that has a kasra on it, that's called a maksur word. Is that clear?
Ji, that's clear.
So Yahya, if you can repeat that from the red writing that I've done. Alhamdu.
Ji. So alhamdu, that do is a dhamma and the word will be madhmoom.
Grammatically, it'll be called madhmoom.
Ji. And so grammatically it'll be madhmoom. Alhamda, that da at the end, that's the fatha, and grammatically the word will be maftuh. And alhamdi, that di at the end, that's a kasra, and grammatically the word will be maksur.
Now let's go back to the terminologies, number 4 onwards. Number 4, dhamma. So it's a dhamma sign. Then madhmoom, madhmoom. So madhmoom is basically that word that has a dhamma on it is in the grammatical state, what we call madhmoom. And number 6 is fatha and then maftuh. Number 8 is kasra and then maksur. I've just explained all of those terms. Then clear?
Ji.
Now let's carry on with the terminologies. It moves on to the next page. Number 10 is sukoon. Sukoon is basically on certain words, like for example, let's just take the example of alhamd again. Imagine it's alhamd and you stop in there something. So it's not alhamdud or alhamda or alhamdi, rather it's alhamd. So it's normally represented by the circle. On some subcontinent places, they'll have it like a, they'll have a jazm, what they call a jazm. So they'll put a mark like this. So sometimes in the Quran, subcontinent type writing, it's like a mark like that. And in Arab style, it's more circle. So alhamd. So we call that sukoon or jazm. That's called sukoon or jazm. Number 11, haraka. So by the way, number 10, going back to number 10. So this is called sukoon or jazm state. Now number 11, haraka. Haraka is, there's 3 harakas you have. Just 1 second. I think I need to improve on my writing. There's 3 harakas that you have. The haraka is dhamma, fatha or kasra. Dhamma, fatha or kasra. That's how we normally write it to represent the harakat. All these 3 are regarded as the haraka. And this, the jazm, that's or sakin, is counted as non-haraka, which is called sukoon. By the way, a word which ends with a haraka is called mutaharrik. Number 12. A word which ends with a haraka is called mutaharrik. Yahya, can you give me an example of a mutaharrik?
Alhamdu.
Alhamdu, or alhamda, or alhamdi. A word that ends with a sukoon is called sakin. Can you give me an example of a sakin word?
Alhamd.
Alhamd. So it's that one there. Okay, then. Number 14. Number 14 is tanween. Tanween is double dhamma or double fatha or double kasra. So how we had dhamma, fatha, kasra here. Now let's do tanween. Tanween example, we represent that by writing it in this way. So this is double dhamma, this is double fatha, or this is double kasra. So grammatical states and rules will tell us when we use single dhamma, fatha, kasra, or when we use double. That we'll learn throughout the grammar book. Number 15 is tashdeed. Tashdeed is basically some letters are repeated. When they're repeated, we represent that by Rabb, like the word Rabbil Alameen. So Rabb. If you notice in the Quran, it'll have a tashdeed sign. That just means it's like a duplicate. So if you notice Rabbi, we're reading the bar twice. Rabbi. So rather than writing it as 2 separate bars, we write it with a tashdeed. We merge it and we write it like a tashdeed. And a letter that has a tashdeed on, that's called a mushaddad. So that bar is a mushaddad. That's number 16, mushaddad letter. Then is there any questions so far here?
Nope, no question.
If you can repeat briefly from 10 till 16.
Yeah. So number 10 was sukoon or jazm. So that's like alhamd, that part at the end, the stopping part. Number 11 is haraka. That's either a dhamma, a fatha, or a kasra. So either alhamdu, alhamda, alhamdi. Mutaharrik is a word which either has a haraka at the end, so has a dhamma, fatha, a kasra. Then number 13 is a sakin. That's a word which has sukoon at the end. So it's a word which has that stopping at the end, alhamd. Number 14 is tanween. So it's a double dhamma, a double fatha, a double kasra. And for that, grammatical rules will dictate whether a word has tanween or not. Number 15 is tashdeed. It's a word which you pronounce it as double. So rabbi. So you pronounce that bar twice, but it's written once with the wow looking symbol on top, and the W looking symbol on top. And number 16 is mushaddad. That's a word which has tashdeed upon it.
Very good, mashallah. Now number 17, 18, 19 go together, and they're very simple. Wahid tathniya jama. Wahid tathniya jama. There's actually a full lesson on this. Lesson 5 or 6 or something coming later. So as I mentioned, all of these terms will be explained in much more detail later. But this is just some terms you might just want to start getting used to. So wahid tathniya jama, all that means is singular, dual, plural. Now, do you know how in English languages we just have singular and plural? So you have a friend and you have friends. So singular and plural, one or many. In Arabic, you have 3 steps. 1, 2, or many. So you have 1, then you have 2, and you have 2 plus, or we can say 3 or more. So that's called singular, dual, or plural. Literally, that's all it is. So if it's, let's just say pen, Arabic, the word qalamun is a pen in Arabic. Just 1 second. Qalamun, that's a pen. That's one pen. Qalamani, we'll learn all this later. Don't worry about the specific example. I'm just trying to give an idea. Qalamani means 2 pens. And then aqlamun means 3 or more pens. So pens, plural now. Is that clear?
Ji, that's clear.
If you can repeat that, Yahya.
So there's 3 types. The first type is wahid, which means singular. Then you can have a dual word, which is tathniya, and then you can have a plural, which is jama'. And by plural, that means 3 or more.
And now number 20, 21 means mudhakkar mu'annath. Mudhakkar mu'annath. Mudhakkar mu'annath is more based on gender. Mudhakkar is male, so masculine. And mu'annath is feminine, female. Done. And now 22 and 23, they go together. 22 is a singular word. So if it's just one word, pen. And number 23 is a sentence. The pen is in the box. The pen is in the box. So this full thing is a sentence, which we call kalam. But each individual word is individual word. That's called a kalima. Kalima. So kalima is an individual word. Kalam is a full sentence. Is that clear, Yahya?
Yep, that's clear.
You can repeat that.
So number 20 and 21 was number 20 was mudhakkar, which meant masculine, and mu'annath, which was feminine. And number 22 and 23 discussed word and phrase. So number 22 is a kalima, which is a singular word, like pen. And number 23, kalam, which is a phrase or sentence. So the pen was in the box.
Yeah, very good, inshallah. May Allah grant you knowledge, make this a journey of success in terms of Nahw and much wider learning of Arabic language and Islam as a large. Any questions you have?
No questions.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.